because I'm just beating the crud out of it with medications.
Welcome to the June 10th, I guess we're on, I'm seeing us. Welcome to the June 10th school board meeting. We're going to ask our secretary for a roll call and determination of a quorum.
Director DeBeat.
Here.
Draba. Finn.
Here.
Mather.
Here.
McCarter.
Here.
Neighbor.
Here.
Wildermuth.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. So now we'll stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we'd like to welcome our visitors, and if we have any media representatives here. Our next item on our agenda is Citizen Speaks, and I think there probably are several people here, so I'll remind you that we need you to come to the podium, give your name and your address, and then you have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll ask you to hold it to that. And the board, by law, does not respond to your comments, so we are willing to listen to you, or ready to listen to you. So, the podium.
My name is Jacqueline McCoy. I live at 2114 Schley Avenue, Muscatine, Iowa. And I want to thank Dr. Reby and the board for allowing us this opportunity to come and share ideas and concerns. You have a handout packets that's being handed out to you at this time. This kind of continued open exchange of information between the district and the community is one of the endearing qualities that I love about living in Muscatine. And so it is for this reason that me and some other concerned citizens are here tonight to share our thoughts about the naming of the new middle school. And while it has come to our attention that the district has already informed the classes of 2021, 22 through 24 that the middle school staff has chosen a name and made a recommendation to Dr. Reby, we believe that the voices of the citizens still carry weight and that this board will thoughtfully and carefully consider all options, and in light of our ever-growing diverse community, we'll think about the impact the naming of the middle school will have upon this generation and generations to come. So, with that being said, I am a proud, see my gold? I am a proud graduate of the Muscatine Community School District, as are my children. I had one graduate just a few weeks ago, as many people in my family have been. My aunt was a teacher. She just retired from many years of teaching in the Muscatine Community School District, so I have long roots in this community. And often, growing up as an African American in Muscatine, I have found myself as one who's different, just like Susan Clark. Susan Clark found herself to be different. And I have felt the uncomfortableness of eyes as I've entered the room. And I know how scary it is when people are looking at you and you feel like you're out of place. And I have felt the nerves of fear and anxiety tighten in my stomach as I get the nerves and the shakes. I've had to muster up and encourage myself, give myself self-talk, and tell myself that it's okay. I deserve to be here. I know what it feels to have to muster up the courage to, when you're in a room with people who are all different from you, to dare to put forth an idea, to dare to answer a question. Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, then bring a folding chair. And so I can identify with Susan Clark. She showed courage and strength of character to find her place at this district's table. And naming the school after Susan Clark will reinforce to the next generation that they too can be courageous and strong, and not only have a seat at the table, but be welcomed at the table. Thank you.
Jay Brady, 417 Kindler Avenue. I am here tonight to also speak on the naming of the middle school. And I just wanted to dovetail into the previous speaker concerning Susan Clark's story is pretty amazing. It occurred over 100 years ago. Her prominent father, Alexander G. Clark, sent her to school, to the public school. She was being educated at the African Methodist Church school for the African Americans. And when he sent her to the public school, she got turned away because of her color. And he promptly filed a lawsuit, which eventually became a success. And she was integrated into the public schools, graduating later in her academic career with honors from Muscatine Community School District. So I think this is an amazing story to consider 100 plus years ago. Dan Clark will come up here in a bit and talk about the national prominence of that. But I want to keep this kind of locally focused. And to me, this reminds us of the opportunity that we all have with our public education system. That's one of the unique things about this country in its prehistory, early history, was we established public education. And what a story it has been for our nation to have public schools and accessible public education for everyone. And so this story of local prominence tells us that we can have opportunity for all. We can have equality. We can have justice. That the value of education is not limited to class. This is a timeless example that has been set for us over 100 years ago. And I would urge the school board members to consider naming this junior high or middle school or whatever school level that we want to call it after Susan Clark, so that can be a symbol to the whole community on equality and opportunity for everyone. Thank you.
I am Dan Clark, Daniel G. Clark, 1221 Mulberry. Arrived in the community in 1982, had daughters in Jefferson School and Central and on graduating from the high school. Our family was active in diversity issues in those schools up through the years. I was on a district's diversity committee that planned Diversity Day events and activities. In more recent years, I've been a resource to the schools in local history and Iowa Civil War history, particularly the Alexander Clark story. Right now, we're grieving the death of a middle school teacher, and my fond memory of her is her bringing kids out of school downtown to walk in the streets and talk about what happened in these places, to stand in front of Alexander Clark's house and tell that story. I want to refer to two of the handouts you have. This, if you refer to the second sheet, that is a piece. I was on the city's Historic Preservation Commission. I chaired it for a while, active in the preservation of Alexander Clark's house, and worked a lot with the State Historical Society in that regard. This is from a publication of the State Historical Society for Iowa students, I think fifth graders particularly, who study Iowa history, about kid heroes in Iowa. And there's their story from back in the 1990s about Susan Clark. I want to call out these words. For years, most credit for integrating schools in Muscatine and throughout Iowa was given to Susan's father. Meanwhile, Susan was nearly forgotten. Because she was young, African American, and a girl, 1800s historians had three easy excuses to forget about one of Iowa's bravest students. Few details have been uncovered about her later life, and today historians do not know what Susan looked like. Despite the picture you may have seen in the Iowa Public Television documentary, we don't know for a fact that that was Susan Clark, and so on. Just to show you that this is a big deal. Outside Muscatine, it's recommended by the state of Iowa for curriculum, and now also the Department of Education. Some of us were at Drake University last fall for a conference they held titled Clark 150. The state was celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Clark versus Muscatine schools case, the ruling from April 1868 that said every kid in Iowa, in any background, any circumstance, any color, any religion, rich, poor, you name it, has equal rights to public education. Some of us went to Drake University for a law school short course, a session devoted entirely to the Clark case and its significance. Among the speakers, we heard the current Chief Justice of the Iowa Supreme Court, and I don't exaggerate. He said Iowa jurisprudence in terms of equality is built on the Clark case of 1868. And I want to close with one more little reading to you. The last sheet you have, I simply gave you the table of contents of the current edition of the Drake Law Review, where they published papers and proceedings from that conference last fall. It's online just now. I gave you the PDF address there. You can look it up. You can see the incredible superlatives related to this accomplishment. So here's just a brief quote from there. This is Earl Marty Martin, president of Drake University, admonishing the 2018 graduates of the Drake University Law School. We celebrate the unbelievable courage of Susan Clark, the then 11-year-old African-American girl who marshaled the strength on September 10, 1867, to claim the right to go to school with the white children of Muscatine. Susan Clark acted in full view of her community by presenting herself at the schoolhouse door and demanding entry. She did not assert her claim anonymously or from afar. She owned her cause, and I like to believe that her display of courage had a whole lot to do with the district court judge and the Iowa Supreme Court justices finding the courage within themselves to do the right thing by Susan Clark and by the law. You are the direct descendants of that Board of Education that resisted Susan Clark's application to attend your public school. You all sent the case to the Supreme Court. Thank you.
My name is Sue Thielman. I live at 1500 Oak Street here in Muscatine. I'm not only a resident of the school district, I am a former employee. I have 3 children and my oldest grandchild who have all attended Muscatine schools and have graduated from Muscatine High School. I have a very real investment in this community and in our schools. While the last 30 years of my career were spent at Muscatine High School, my total career covers 40 years of working with junior high and high school students as a teacher and as a counselor. My interest has always been in looking for what is in the best interest of students, bar all other things someone might come up with. Let me explain how naming a school after Susan Clark would be in the best interest of the students of Muscatine. In my 40-year career, I worked directly with thousands of students and had the opportunity to observe thousands of others. For most teenagers, the teenage years are filled with angst, uncertainty, and self-doubt. Threading their way through that maze to become adults is often filled with obstacles and detours. And imagine that difficult time if you can. And then multiply it by being a female in 1868. Then multiply it again by being a person of color in 1868. As you have heard, Susan Clark was a preteen when she was turned away from her neighborhood school in Muscatine because of the color of her skin, and then was the named plaintiff in a groundbreaking, history-making lawsuit. While older and wiser heads wrote the suit and followed it through the courts, it was Susan Clark who, on her 12-year-old shoulders, bore the burden of desegregating the schools in the state of Iowa. It was Susan Clark who, day after day, went into the schools and held her head up high to get the education she knew she deserved. It was Susan Clark who had the courage to stay the course and become an honor graduate of Muscatine High School. So, how can recognizing Susan Clark be beneficial to students today? Well, what Susan Clark did 150 years ago laid the foundation to support diversity in Muscatine schools today. Recognizing her name recognizes her accomplishment. In my heart, and I hope in yours, there is little doubt the name Susan Clark represents a kind of moral courage that we hope to engender in young people. Susan Clark did the right thing because it was the right thing to do. What better example could we provide to the students of Muscatine going into their newly organized junior high school than walking in under the name Susan Clark? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jean Clark. I live at 1221 Mulberry Avenue. I taught special education for 27 years at Muscatine High School. I have 2 daughters who attended Muscatine schools K-12, as did both of my sons-in-law. So I care about our schools and I care about our community. I know the committee has recommended the generic name of Muscatine Junior High. In this naming process, we have the opportunity to educate the community and highlight a local girl who impacted our state and our nation. We have an amazing local history regarding civil rights and the desegregation of public schools. Unfortunately, not many people know about the courageous actions of Susan Clark. We can help our community and state learn this history by naming our junior high after her. Muscatine doesn't have any schools named after women, and Iowa and the U.S. have very few also. We're getting ready to celebrate 100 years of women having the right to vote. And it's just about 150 years since Susan Clark integrated Iowa schools. What a perfect time to name a school after Susan and show our students that women and girls do matter and that they do have a place in history and they have helped shape laws and policies. Choosing the unique name for our school would be a bold move. It's not the recommendation of your committee or staff. But just as young Susan was bold in asserting her right to a better education, I hope you, the committee, the school board, and Superintendent Reby are bold enough to reconsider the recommendation and lead this community in honoring this amazing young woman by choosing Susan Clark as the name for the new junior high. Thank you.
So is there anyone else that would like to comment? If not, we sincerely appreciate your thoughts. You've educated us, and as you know, we cannot comment at this point. So it's scheduled to vote on the new name at the August meeting, so I guess stay tuned. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the board target goals report. Is there anything there to be? No. Okay, so we're going to move to the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda, that being the minutes, employment recommendations, bills and claims, the special education contract, the student teaching contracts, and the contract with Muscatine Community College for video production services. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That takes us, our motion carries. That takes us then to item G, and that would be to approve a contract with Curriculum Management Solutions for a curriculum audit in the amount of $40,900 with a post-audit visit option of $3,000. And Dr. Reevy, I assume you can give us a little bit of info on that.
Well, I can certainly try. So about 6 months ago, the recommendation to the board is that the board would look at a independent third party to do a review of our district to see where our improvement efforts have led us, areas that we need to continue to work on, areas that may improve and speed the work. And the board has had some conversation with the Curriculum Management Solutions out of Johnston, Iowa, and they truly are a not only an independent third party, but an independent third party known around the world doing this work. So I am not on the committee that there is a board committee, subcommittee that's working with this, and I think Aaron and Randy, you two serve on that. If you'd have anything to add to that.
I guess I have a question of if we approve this, when would this begin? And I know there was some talk earlier about trying to get it finished before we did a superintendent search would probably begin sometime in the fall.
Yeah.
So kind of what would be the timeline?
So I think we'd get started fairly soon with the data analysis, so all the data that we need to send them, and then the on-site audit starts a couple weeks after the schools, in beginning of September, I think.
And actually, the sooner we sign the contract, the quicker we can begin the process of sending in the data and bringing the people on site and coming up with a report.
Well, I have a question. I don't serve on this team, so my question is the post-audit visit option. Can you give us more information about that? Like, is it going to cost us money just to sit with them and talk about the findings, or what exactly they mean by the post-audit visit, please?
I know that there's an exit presentation when they leave. I do not know about any additional visits that come after that, so we could find out and let you know.
I believe if they do provide an exit interview. If the board would like to have additional time with this firm to come and present to groups and do additional work, I think that's what that refers to as. One of the things that I think is commendable for this organization is once they come, they will not come back. They will do this initial extra work, but after that, they will not come back to a district for at least 5 years. So this is not a consulting firm that is continually trying to get more work out of you. They say whatever we find will probably take you 5 years to work on and to make some headway on. So we will leave you with our recommendations and leave you to do the work, but they are not going to try and continue to find additional consulting work.
And I think Jerry's made a very clear point there, is that they are not going to be trying to sell us materials that will help us reach our targeting goals. Once they give us the exit report, it is our responsibilities to move through that exit report and make it come to life. And in about a 5-year period, if we're interested, they will come back and revisit with us where we have moved and what areas we still may need improvement in, and those areas that we've accomplished the goal that was set in the report.
Okay, with this information, I would like to move on accepting that proposal, that audit in the amount of $40,900.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve a contract with Curriculum Management Solutions for a curriculum audit in the amount of $40,900 with a post-audit visit option of $3,000. And Lisa, I would like to ask a question just for the purposes of people in the audience here. In the board packet at the back of the room, is there a copy of what the audit would cover?
There's only an agenda.
So online, if people would like to see the depth of what would be proposed, because it's has great depth to it. So anyone else, any other questions?
I would like to add this. I think the board is going to owe Lisa a great big thank you, because she has agreed to be the liaison between the board and the solutions company. She will be the one providing all of the documents that they are requiring, and those documents are rather extensive. And so I think during it and at the end of it, we probably need to give Lisa lots and lots of kudos.
Or chocolate.
Right. And I would just say I was very impressed with the meeting that we had with the representative of the company. Very impressed with their proposal. I like especially that they're not trying to sell us things, but most importantly, I like that they're going to tell us, warts and all, what our issues are. And I think that's a very important step for us to take. So,
Well, and Dr. Reedy, maybe you'll comment of how we got to the audit, got to it. It's trying to go the next step and figure out what we can do to be a better school district.
Yep.
So.
If you don't have a third party come in and take a look at things, it's just like at home. You can look at your house, and after a while, you start to not notice the uneven floors or the living room that needs new paint. So having a fresh set of eyes coming in and taking a look at things and asking questions that maybe we just haven't thought of, or maybe a little bit out of our wheelhouse, I think will be really helpful.
The other thing that Aaron and Tammy and I had a teleconference with Holly earlier last week, and one of the things that we asked was about the online and paper surveys. Those will be in languages that are used within our school district. The surveys the student surveys can go down as low as third grade and are age appropriate for them in the questionings that they will be able to ask and be able to answer. And they are all basically, many of them are open-ended questions, so that it's just not simply a yes-no. We will find out in some detail how the students K-12 feel, and it will be the same thing for parents. Mm-hmm. That the opportunity for parents will be there to have interviews with the people coming in to do our audit, and many of them will be bilingual. So it should give us a true representation of where our district is.
So we've had a motion and a second and discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion has been approved to approve the contract with Curriculum Management Solutions for a curriculum audit. Moving on to our next item, it's to approve our waiver of instructional material fee for grades K through 12 for the 2019-20 school year. And Dr. Eby, I think that you probably have some information.
Yeah, this is something we've been having a lot of internal conversation about. For years, we've recognized that we have a large number of our families that paying the instructional fee, as well as getting all the school supplies for school, is really something of a burden. We've been budgeting about $150,000 is what we would be taking in typically with revenue. And to give you some idea of where that is with fees, if everyone paid the fee, it would be closer to $500,000. So you can see that it is a fee that's not paid by most. But we've also been looking at this, and I really have appreciated Tom's guidance on this. Tom has reached out to other districts across the state, similar demographics and structure as ours. And what we have looked at is if we would want to recommend waiving the entire fee or a partial fee. And tonight, I believe what we are probably feel the most comfortable in would be to say we have a two-part solution to this situation, because for kids starting a school year, a family of 2 or 3 kids, between school supplies, registration fees, getting some new clothes, all those kind of things, you could easily run into $300 or $400 of expense. And so what we have looked at is, one, we took a hard look at the school supply list that's required of kids, and it is really literally putting rocks in the backpack, no pun intended, for a lot of families. And so we've taken a look at that, and we visited with our principals. Principals have talked to their staff. What we're going to do is the school supply list is going to be very minimal. It's going to be bring a notebook and bring a pack of pencils. Backpack optional. We have some schools that the list was long, lengthy, and for some families it was not a chore. For some of our schools, the kids never had the supplies. So what we wanted to do is to make this a very simple list. We did want to include the reason we're including a notebook and a package of pencils is that I think it's important for kids to learn that when you come to school, you bring the tools of learning. Mm-hmm. And we're still talking about a very minimal cost, but I think there's something to be said for that. So what we're looking at if we take that off the table, what we would be proposing is that our current curriculum instruction fee for high school is $85 per student, and for elementary, I believe, is $55. And what our recommendation would be to drop that to $40, which would be $20 for those families that are on reduced price lunch. That allows us to continue to have a fee structure in place so that if down the road we're in a position that we would need the revenue, we're not having to bring something back in its totality. And also that will help as we take on the responsibility of getting those school supplies in each and every classroom. So when kids show up on the first day of school, the things they're going to need to learn will be in the room. The teacher won't have to go out and buy them on their own. Teacher won't have to try and figure out what do we do this when half of my class doesn't have the materials. We'll have the things ready in the room, ready to go for kids. And I think this is going to not only be a much more fair solution for the fee structure, but I also think it's going to really just make it much easier on our teachers and classrooms to get up and rolling. So since we did approve those fees earlier, that's why we would need to, my recommendation is the board would consider waiving those fees to the $40 and $20 for reduced price. And Tom, I just want to make sure I got that accurate. Yep.
So you're recommending, even if a high school student pays $85 now and $55, $55 for elementary, that everybody pay $40?
Everybody does $40.
Okay, thank you.
So we're not waiving, we're just reducing.
Well, we're waiving a portion of the fee because we already set the fee. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And as a former elementary classroom teacher, I applaud this move because of the fact I tried very hard to keep my list to a minimum, but there were times that list was 7, not my list, but lists throughout the district, 7 spiral notebooks, a set of markers, a set of colored pencils, a compass, and then, don't forget Kleenexes and a box of baggies, and it just went on and on and on. And after everything else, that list could sometimes add up between $40 and $50. And I'm glad to hear that we're doing what we're doing and that the students will have the responsibility and the parents will have the responsibility for a notebook, some pencils, and an eraser type thing, and the rest of the supplies will be there. I think this is a brilliant move on the district's part.
I also want it to give some kudos here to, starting with Gene Garner and now with Tom. We've had really strong financial leadership, and we have a a good cash balance. We have our expenses, they're very manageable. It only makes sense when we are experiencing those kind of times that we don't take in additional funds that really are more burdensome on families than beneficial to the district. And again, that happens because the work that Tom continues to do to make sure that our expenses are in line with our revenue.
Jerry, one question I had: will the teachers have some flexibility in their lists? The teachers and the principal.
Yeah, the principals have met with their staff and kind of gone through what they will need, and some buildings I think are looking at a few different things. What we're working through is it will come out of the building budget. We'll make sure the building budget will be able to support that. Okay. So our goal is we do not want teachers having to go out and buy supplies on their own. Yeah. There is no need for that. We are not in a position where that should have to happen. So we do ask that people that we want to make sure people get what they need and what they need to help their classroom function and kids to achieve. And we will be there.
Okay.
So there isn't a motion yet, but is what's printed here under H, is that going to work? Approve?
I think that will work. We probably do need to have the amount, the $40 in there that we're either the instructional fee that we're waiving, $45 of the instructional fee, materials fee. But I think we want to make sure we have the dollar amount in there.
Okay. I was going to say I will move to waive portion of the current fee and reduce by $45, reducing it to $40.
And the elementary by $15.
And that too.
We wanted to try and complicate this.
Yeah,
sure.
No.
Now we're the same.
There is going to be more cost for us with providing the supplies at the elementaries than at the high school level, which is, if someone says, well, why are you reducing it so much more at the high school? There will be more cost at the elementary in supplying those.
So I'll go ahead and second the motion.
So it's been moved and seconded to waive the current instructional material fee and reduce it. And is there any other discussion? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is to approve lease or leases for student classroom technology hardware not to exceed the annual budget of $500,000. So Scott is getting to the podium.
And I'll kind of set the table a little bit for this conversation. We have budgeted $500,000 for technology acquisition for classrooms and students. But one of the things that we are finding is that the need, as we have moved computer units from the high school, middle school, to the elementary school, they're showing quite a bit of wear by the time it gets to the elementary kids. And just as the units are getting are not as workable as they should be, the state testing and our reading series testing is an online web-based assessment. So what we're hoping to accomplish here is we want to stay within the budgeted amount, because that's important, correct, Tom? We want to stay within the budget amount, but we also want to try and make sure that we meet the needs of our kids in classrooms. And so, Scott, I'll kind of hand it off to you.
Thank you, Jerry. So I guess for me, this is a really exciting thing to come and do. As Jerry pointed out, the elementary teachers have consistently said to me, when are we going to get something new? Because over the last, since 2011, we've pretty much handed down everything that we've used at the secondary level. So they currently are using the Apple laptops that we purchased in 2012. So those laptops are 7 years old. God bless them, they've lasted a really long time, but they're starting to show like battery issues and just keys have fallen off, and just keeping them up to date has been very difficult. And if you're an elementary school teacher with 20, 25, 27 students in your classroom and you're going to prep a lesson or a state assessment, and you've got all the students that all get out their laptops and 3 of them the battery isn't charged any longer and so they can't get going, or a variety of other technical issues, you're at that point like leaving being an elementary school teacher and you're becoming a tech person. And so it's really, it's frustrating for them, it's very frustrating for us. So we're very excited to be able to come to you and ask to be able to replace those devices for them. So what we're looking at here are Chromebooks in the quantity of 2,900. Those Chromebooks would go from grade 2 all the way through grade 9. So normally on our replacement strategy, this is the year we would have been up for the 4 grades in the secondary level. Last year we did 3 grades, but we wanted to add on to that and take care of these elementary folks. So that's where we added the grades 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 6 being in the elementary schools as well. So that takes care of the Chromebooks. We have 625 iPads on there, so that's for grades K1. Currently, they have iPads that were purchased in that same 2012 purchase that we bought the laptops. So those iPads also are just finished up their 7th year. That strategy basically provides, I think it's 15 iPads for each kindergarten section and 25 iPads for each first grade section. We also got every elementary classroom in most of our buildings currently has a smart board, even a year older than we've already been talking about. Back in 2011, a lot of our elementary schools went out to their PTOs and they started buying smart boards. And they outfitted it was amazing. They raised the funds and they got their classrooms outfitted with smart boards, with the exception of, I think, Franklin Elementary. They have some, but they don't have every classroom. At the same time, they purchased projectors to go with those smart boards. So those smart boards now are old enough that for the last 2 years, they've been starting to fail. We've started seeing the touch digitizers on them have been failing and some control units. So that expense has been starting to rack up, as well as those projectors getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. So that's the technology that you have in front of you. Those smart boards, there's 106 of them on there. That would go in every core kindergarten through 6th grade classroom. So the total on all 3 of those comes to $1,377,222. But like Dr. Eby indicated, we have a $500,000 budget. It's very important to stay in that and have a predictable replacement scheme, a replacement strategy. So that what we're looking at doing is a 3-year lease that would bring that lease payment down to approximately $472,000 every year for 3 years.
Typically, I wouldn't recommend a lease just because it almost always costs you more. However, in this case, our need really probably outweighs our budget, so this somewhat takes care of that. The other thing that's I think we'll see some benefit from this, that the highlighted one from American Capital, we get to buy every unit for $1 a unit. The iPads and the smart boards will last probably twice the length of the lease. And so we're really getting we should get 5 to 6, 7 years, maybe the smart boards, maybe even more.
Right.
And we would probably, with those elementary computers, my guess is, since those won't be take-home units and they'll have a little more nurturing care, we could get maybe 2 years additional beyond the lease out of them. So I think we gain some benefit that way. The other thing with that interest rate at that low, a lot of these components and things that we're talking about are Chinese, or parts of them are Chinese. And depending on where the continuing trade issues go with tariffs and those type of things, it might be cheaper to get them now than to try and piecemeal these out over the next couple of years. Now, I'm not claiming to be an international trade expert, But I have a feeling the increase may be more than the 2.3%. So I think this would give us an opportunity to be proactive. Best case scenario is we look like geniuses and we outpace the price increase. Worst case scenario is we've paid a little bit of interest and we have all of the equipment up front and ready to go for our kids for the next 3 years.
Scott, what happens to all of the old stuff?
So the MacBook Airs that are 7 years old and well loved will go on to the auction block. Okay. We did that a few years ago and had a really good. It was okay. Nice to have a good return rate on that. The iPad, same thing. We'll get what we can get out of those. And the smart boards, we're still researching on that because I'm not seeing like as big of a used smart board market, and plus they're large, and so you have to get them transported places. Mm-hmm. So we're open. We're looking for some. Okay. I mean, I think we're going to make use of them in a very intelligent way. So the ones that are still in good condition, if we can move them into other classrooms that aren't covered by this, then great.
Great, thank you.
And Scott, I have a question. I was not really reading my paper, but the 2,900 Chromebooks are for what grades?
Grades 2 through 9.
That's what I thought you said. Okay, thank you.
The other thing that, for those of you that were on the board the very first time you adopted the one-to-one with the MacBooks or the Macs, you notice the price on those Chromebooks are under $200 a unit. You're probably getting 3 of those for the cost of one Mac.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and Scott, I don't know if you maybe could share a little bit about the repair protocol we have with these.
Yeah, so just like we've been doing for the last couple of years, we also purchased accidental damage policy for next to, it's like $65 for 3 years, so less than $20 a year or whatever, to be able to cover any damages that happen with that. And we ship them off for free. They come back fixed. We hand them back out. So we're just able to minimize that amount of, money coming out of our pocket to repair damaged machines.
Scott, I have a question. I mean, after the 3 years lease, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that right. To buy back each piece of that will cost us $1, right?
Actually, I called the lease company this afternoon to clarify that. It's a $1 purchase at the end of the lease, so it's $1.
It's not $1 per unit.
Not per
unit. $1.
The whole dollar. Okay.
Right.
For all of it.
Well,
for all of it.
Well, given the fact that now it came even much better than what I expected, I will move to approve basically the lease for student classroom technology, not to exceed the annual budget of $500,000. I took it as $1 per piece, so if it's the whole thing is $1, definitely I will move to approve that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a lease for student classroom technology hardware not to exceed the annual budget of $500,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We've kept this under wraps. So there's going to be a lot of really happy elementary teachers.
Approve the recommendation to accept the bid from Midland Paper. Is that you, Tom, or who is it?
So, yeah, we sent out a request for proposals on purchasing paper for this coming year, and we received 3 bids back. That was in your board book. Mm-hmm. We're recommending Midland Paper, and in case you're wondering, we do collect data from all the buildings, and yes, we are purchasing less paper than we have in the past. A lot of that's due to using what we already have purchased in the past, so we're trying to use what we have already in stock, and then this will get us through the year then. So this is our recommendation.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bid from Midland Paper in the amount of $33,187,023 for paper for next year. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approve the recommendation to accept the bid from Rapids Food Service Contract and Design of Cedar Rapids for the purchase of equipment, supplies, and services in the amount of $417,667.60. Is that Alicia?
Yep. I will
Okay,
speak
Tom.
first anyway, but so yeah, we sent out an RFP for some not only equipment for the McKinley project, but also for needed equipment and supplies throughout the district for next year. We are going to amend the dollar amount because we are going to pass on, after discussion today with Alicia and with Jeff Miller, we are going to pass on the equipment for Grant, the Muscatine Learning Center, and Mulberry, and we will rebid that later on, either later this fall or next spring for installation of next year. So the amount that we are requesting approval for, that we're recommending, is $263,983.60. And as I said in the board book, probably around, well, not probably, $152,027 will be coming from food service, Fund 61. The McKinley project is $39,310 for that dishwasher, and then capital project, PEPL will pay for the high school ovens of $72,646.
Is that it?
Yes, that is it.
Are there any questions? Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded now to approve the Rapids Food Service Contract and Design from Cedar Rapids for the purchase of equipment, supplies, and services in the amount of $263,983.60. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move on to the Juntos Program, and I see Krista and several people with her. So, Krista, I guess the floor is yours. Krista Regenator, Iowa State University Extension.
Yes, hello. My name is Krista Regenator, and I'm the Muscatine County Extension Director for Iowa State University Extension and Outreach, Muscatine County. And we're back. Hopefully you guys all remember. We're just going to share some information about our Juntos program. So let's make sure I got this right. So I'm going to start out, and then we're going to go down the line, and everybody gets to introduce themselves and share a bit of their story about being involved in Juntos. But just to remind you guys, to start out, Iowa State University Extension Outreach, we're a 99-county campus. We're attached to Iowa State because it's the land-grant university in Iowa, and our mission is to connect the resources and research that happens at Iowa State University back to Iowans in the county. So we are a county government subunit, and so I work for the Muscatine County Agriculture Extension District. But they like at Iowa State for us to put Iowa State University first. So we have to do that. So we do programming in 4 different distinct areas in partnership with Iowa State. And ag and natural resources is our history. It's where a lot of our programming comes from. We also do programming in human sciences, which Juntos is a part of. 4-H youth development, which we also do with Juntos, and then community and economic development. So we have lots of different programs. We have lots of different partnerships in Muscatine County and all of these different areas. But today we're specifically going to talk about the Juntos program. And I don't know, is anybody on the board in 2014? All right, Randy, okay, there we go. So you guys then signed a Memorandum of Understanding back in 2014 when Muscatine County and Polk County were a part of a grant from the USDA. So this project up until July 31st of this year has been funded through a 5-year grant. It's a CIFAR grant, which is Children, Youth, and Families at Risk. That's under the USDA. And the goal of our program the grant was to do the Juntos Together for a Better Education program along with wraparound components that we're going to talk about tonight. And we are ending our 5th year of that grant. And we have a couple of our graduates that are going to talk about their experiences that they've had. But the goal of this program is to bring Latino families together with community partners and school district partners to help kids see themselves in a bright future of high school graduation and going on to secondary or post-secondary education. So that's what we set out to do. We have a couple of sub-goals that you can kind of see on there, but you guys got it, that we want to strengthen the involvement of the parents in the school district. We want to provide an opportunity where especially parents who are non-English speaking feel comfortable in the schools and feel connected. We want to improve that in communication between parents, youth, and school, empower youth to graduate from high school, increase families' understanding of the requirements to graduate from high school, so that's a big part of what we talk about, and then also increase family awareness of financing higher education. So those are the goals of the program. And we do this through these 5 components. The workshop series is the beginning. That's kind of the entry into Juntos. And that's actually the Juntos Together for a Better Education is a curriculum for a 5-week workshop series with youth and families. They come together. It's commonly taught in Spanish, unless, we have to do bilingually in case somebody doesn't understand Spanish. But most of the time, would you say it's been done in Spanish? Yeah, mostly. So that the really great thing is that the parents are learning about the school district and accessing, the requirements for high school, and then accessing post-secondary education in their native language, so it helps them understand it better. The success coaching is one-to-one or small group academic coaching where staff go into the schools, and this year we added an attendance goal that they talk about and things like that to align with the district's goals, but it's really just that coaching of time management, study skills, things like that. We have a 4-H club that meets twice a month after school at the high school. We do family fun nights every other month where we invite families in, and we often have them at MCC. We've had school supply drives. We've had Power School nights where the youth and family learn more about Power School and how to access that. So things that build off of that workshop series. And the Summer Academy is basically a fancy name for an experience on a college campus. So both of these ladies will be able to share that there's different conferences at Iowa State University that they've attended that have given the opportunity to sleep in dorms and eat in the cafeterias and kind of see themselves in different campuses. So let's see. So you have the handout. We talked about the funding, so now Araceli is going to take you to the next part. Do you want me to do this?
I'm Araceli Martinez. I'm the program coordinator for Juntos here in Muscatine. So this slide just shows a little bit about how we've increased participation each year. Starting from year 1, we started with 6 youth and their families. And we have graduated or completed workshop series families, about 64 youth and their families at this point. We have about 35 that are still actively participating in the program components. And so part of what we do is we are collecting data on how effective our program is based on these wraparound components. And so data right now is showing that Iowa parents are reflecting an increase in academic expectations for their youth, increasing school communication, just being more comfortable going into the school, and overall parent engagement. They are knowing what to do to help their students succeed. And data for our Iowa youth is now reflecting that they are having an increased school climate. They feel like they belong at school. They feel safe at school. They are committed to school. There's a very specific question in their survey that says, if I had to choose between studying for a test or going out with my friends, most of them are choosing to stay home and study, knowing that that's reflective of their grades. They're also engaging more with their parents and communicating with them more and making sure that they have a place to study. Also, there's been an increase in problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and an empathy for and accepting others. They're often put in a lot of situations where they get to meet new youth, and they are challenged to come outside that comfort zone.